Hello again, everyone. We'll continue today's media availability with our 3 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series championship contending owners. Obviously, 3 giants in our sports. In our sport, 11-time NASCAR Sprint Cup Series champion and owner of Hendrick Motorsports in the end, Mr. Rick Hendrick. 4-time NASCAR Sprint Cup Series champion and reigning championship owner of Joe Gibbs Racing, Joe Gibbs. And the 2012 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series owner champion celebrating his 50th anniversary season, owner of Team Penske, Roger Penske. All 3 of you obviously have experience with championship pressure, so why don't we open by talking about your mindset heading into this championship weekend, and as reigning champion and the guy who got put in the middle, we'll start with you, Coach.
Start with me. Well, I'm not nervous or anything. I just walked into the women's restroom. Other than that, no harm, no foul. I get so excited about this. I got such great respect for Roger and Rick. You guys know my history coaching football, and gave Rick a call. Loved motorsports, and he was nice enough to help me get started, and it was a long story.
Biggest mistake I ever made.
I kid him all the time. I said, I had no debt then. Now I'm knee-deep in debt, so I'm not so sure I should like him either. But it's a thrill for us. And I think the biggest thing about our sport I get focused on is the fact that this sport, we run and go with sponsorship. Other sports, football, basketball, baseball, you don't need a sponsor. But over here, it's a huge deal for us. And every time I think about that, and I think about the people that are going to be here this weekend from some of the biggest and best corporations in the world. And we stop and think about that just on our teams. It's going to be Coke. It's going to be Toyota. It's going to be Stanley Black & Decker. It's going to be Interstate Batteries. It's going to be Subway. It's going to be Aris Corporation. You just think about that. Mars with Kyle. It's just a huge deal for us. They're all going to be here. And it's so important for us. And I love that part of what we do. It's the relationships. I know Rick has built great relationships, and Roger with their sponsors. And so I get excited about that because it's such a huge weekend for us. And to have them here, to be a part of this, and our fan base for me, you see our fans, they're so loyal. We had fan day at our place. Actually had fans that stayed all night to get autographs the next morning. So I love it from that standpoint. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. I'm really excited about this weekend. I think it's going to be, for the fans, I don't think you can get anything better. These 4 guys want it really, really bad.
Mr. Hendrick?
Let Roger go next.
I don't know about this. I'm not sure how I got here. 11-time winner, 4-time winner, Super Bowl champion. I'm just glad to be in the club with you guys. You know, it's quite an honor. But for me and for our whole team, it's an amazing to think about the season, 30-plus races, and to come down where there's 4 great drivers. And I would say this: when you look at the demographics of our drivers, you look at what they've accomplished individually and collectively on and off the track. It's amazing. And we had good racing last weekend. I know Joe was disappointed. We were had a great day, but I just want to thank the media and everyone for the support. People talk about our sport and what's going on. To me, having run the Super Bowl in Detroit back in 2006 and seeing football down, and yet we're not down quite as much because of social media and some of the other mediums that take place to drive sports. But we talk about the commercial side of this, Joe. Our drivers got to be not only great drivers and tough, they've got to understand the technical side of the business, and the commercial side today becomes more and more important as we field these teams and have to run at the top. So for me and for Team Penske, and certainly after 50 years, I probably should get the hell out of here, but I've got some work to do to just try to keep you guys honest.
Well, it's it is an honor for me to be here with these guys because they're both really good friends of mine. And you know, it's hard to believe that we've been able to win this thing 11 times. Really excited for Jimmy to go for 7. I think it's, you know, really a neat situation. We had a big pep rally. I think it was Wednesday, and all our folks are excited. Is Marty Snyder in here? Is Marty here? I don't know if Marty's here or not. But he was doing an interview with Jimmy, and I don't FaceTime, but some of our folks were FaceTiming. And so I called Jimmy, and he didn't answer the phone. So then I texted him, and they saw that it was me, and I said, "You didn't answer my phone," and it was pretty funny. But he's excited. Our organization's excited. It's going to be a very competitive race. I think the fans are going to get their money's worth. And you know, for me, I'd love to win it. I'd like to see Jimmy get number 7. But I'm just happy to be here because 20 years ago yesterday, I was diagnosed with leukemia, and I didn't have much of a shot. And these guys sitting right here did a lot to try to find a match for me, and I get to publicly thank you for that. And so I'm just taking it like this is a great opportunity. We made it to the finals, and we're going to give it everything we've got, and somebody's going to come out of here the champion, and at least we have a shot.
All right, we'll open it up for questions from the media. We'll start over here with Jeff, next to you to the right, and then down to Bob Pockrass.
Hi, Coach Gibbs. You're the first owner to have 2 drivers in the championship under this format. Yesterday, they kind of differed a little bit on how much information they want to share. They kind of deferred to you. How much information do you want them to share? Do you want them to be as open as they've been all season?
I think there's some information at the shop, but to be quite truthful, both of them want this in the worst way, and they're going to compete. And so we are not sharing a lot of stuff. It's going to be up to them individually. And I think both of our guys, along, you know, Jimmy and Joey, it's such a big deal for them. We kind of felt like, obviously, they're going to be kind of individually going for it. And so it'll be at practice today and everything. So big deal for both of them, but they'll both kind of be on their own here.
All right, we'll go with Zach, Bob, and then over to Mike Hembry.
Zach Hansberry, front stretch. This is for all 3 of you guys. Tommy Baldwin Racing made the announcement they're pulling out of full-time racing for next year. So you guys are in different boats, but where do you see the sport when it comes to sponsorship? Do you see issues? Do you see, is it improving? You know, what did that announcement mean to you guys?
Go ahead.
Well, I think it's if in any sport today, it's tough. You know, if you look at what's going on in the NFL and the viewership, all the sponsors watch that. The good news is we have not slipped as much as some of the other folks. We have a couple of new guys coming on, new sponsors. We did this year. We're working one that we'll announce probably after the first of the year. But you have to do a lot of work, and you have to work social media, digitally, and everything else. And I think NASCAR has stepped it up. But it's tough out there, and you know, you're seeing multiple sponsorships on cars, but you're having to do more work and build more content to help the sponsors that you have. It's a lot harder than it's ever been, but I do see it kind of leveling off.
Yeah, we had a perfect example of, I'm really bullish on our sport. We've had in the last 2 years, we've had Eris, Hisense, companies like that. We had a good example was Tide with Procter & Gamble. You know, they wanted to take a look at the throwback race at Darlington. Those were all millennials that run in that company right now. And they were basing it off social media. They wanted to see what kind of return they got. And because of our fans and everybody, we hit it out of the park. And so I think with this group up here, you know, we got 3 Xfinity cars totally funded. We got 4 Cup cars totally funded. I'm excited about Because, listen, we have a great marketing window here. We're 38 weekends. And I think some of the biggest and best companies in the world are sponsoring Rick and Roger. And when you look at that, I just think I think we got a lot of, I'm bullish on where we are. And so I kind of see that and going forward. And the thing about our sport that's different, when somebody sponsors a race car, they're in the race. They're going to be in the race. They're going to be going around there 3.5 hours and have a chance to win a championship. So I think it's some of the biggest and best companies in the world are represented up here. And I'm excited about our future. We've had dips in pro sports. You have dips, but I'm excited about where we're headed.
I think when you talk about Baldwin, I think one of the things that he's going to benefit is the charter system, because he had value that he was able to generate through the charter system. And I think he's probably made a deal which will keep him involved to a certain extent. So I think that's what we all wanted. You build a team like the coach has, and he understands what values there. I think we have that today. And when they talk about the health of the sport, I think the communication and partnership between the car owners and NASCAR has never been better. And I think that if you talk to Baldwin, maybe he feels he just can't put a car on the track as well as he wants to from a competitive standpoint, but he can certainly take his knowledge and share that with someone else along with his charter.
All right, we'll go to Bob, Mike Hembry, and then Marty Smith.
Bob Parker, ESPN. Roger, what's the difference for you being here this weekend, having a shot at the title compared to the way it was a year ago when you did it?
Well, people have asked me that before. We really, closed the season last year. I talked to the coach, and we moved on. I think that, I've got to thank Joe on one hand, because he was the one that, let Joey go for us. So to me, it was disappointing we couldn't run last year in the Final Four, but, it's 2016, and as I said earlier, I'm just proud to be here and be one of the cars, chasing the chase here, on Sunday.
All right, we'll go with Mike, Marty, and then Dustin Long.
Mike Hendrick, Auto Week. Roger, you've been through race for championships and won them in all kinds of point systems. How do you see this four-driver top finisher take off format? Good, bad, ugly, and different? How do you look at it versus the other ways?
I sure like it right now. So I think, right now, these are the rules. And I know there's been lots of discussions how we can make it better. One thing we have to be sure in the sport, that we collaborate with the car owners, the drivers, and NASCAR, and think about the fans, number one, and then obviously our sponsors in the show. And we'll continue, I think, to re-engineer this to a certain extent and see, what might help us to make it even better next year. But, certainly a lot of excitement, certainly a lot of pressure, when you think about the teams and the preparation. And I know our sponsors, we're going to have people that have never been here before. And when you think someone like, Shell Oil Company, and they send out an email to all of their employees around the world to watch this race on Sunday, that's the kind of connection we have, and I think that's pretty powerful.
All right, over to Marty, Dustin Long, and then George Diaz.
Gentlemen, hi. Your list of drivers collectively is ridiculous. You've employed some of the most talented, successful men to ever do it. So, in your estimation, where does Tony Stewart rank among that list? I know that Joey drove for you. He did some Busch stuff for you guys, I think, once. And Roger, I know you said before one of your greatest regrets is he was never in one of your cars. So when you look back at what he's accomplished, where do you rank him, and what's his legacy?
Well, let me just say, Tony coming from an open wheel, part of the business in Indianapolis, you'd have to say, was the crown jewel for him, and to see him compete there, and then obviously move on to NASCAR and brought, such emotion, in class to the sport, and the competitiveness that he brought, and to see him step out is, certainly amazing when you think about the years that have gone by, and it's time for him to do something else. But what he's been able to do is take his name, take his spirit, and certainly his expertise, and build a team with Gene Haas, which will give us the ability to compete with him for a long time. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, that he and I talked about him going to Indy and drive for us, and it's a shame that we never had that chance, because I used to sit in those meetings and he would sit up front there being the guy that we had to beat, and we just never had a chance to partner. But I respect him, and also respect him to say, hey, it's time for me to get out. Rick Mears did that a number of years ago. He said, Roger, I just can't dig down deep enough anymore to make it happen. I think that's where Tony is.
Yeah, I think there's so many things about Tony. First meeting him, I think he was one of the guys that had the best feeling for himself and a great pride about what he wanted to do in life. And we talked to him, when we signed him, he said to me, he says, I'm not ready. He said, and I don't know that I've heard that from somebody else that's a driver. He said, I'm not ready, I'm not going to embarrass myself. He said, I want to spend some time in Xfinity Series, Busch Series, and when he was racing for us, he had such a passion. That's his total focus. And when Tony went after it, I don't care what the track was, I thought he was one of the great competitors. I tell a story on him that when he first came with us, and I used it in football too, we had a horrible pit stop, when he first went to Cup. Most drivers go nuts and everything. And I always remember this. He was at the back of the field, and he goes like this. He goes, watch this. And honestly, he went to the front faster than anybody. And so I use that in football. If you're down and think you're down, I always used to use that, watch this. And he said, hey, I used to sign up to start in the back of the field over there at midget racing and stuff so I could win $10,000. This guy, I think he's special. I'm glad he's going to continue to be in our sport. And I think we all, really respect what he's done.
Yeah, I think Tony brought a lot of color, excitement. He mentored a lot of young drivers. He sure showed a lot of passion. I got to win Daytona Busch race with him, and he's somebody that the sport needed and still needs. And I think his face, he was in the owners meeting the other day, and I think he will add a lot. And I think, as Roger said, he knows it's time to step out and do something else. So having him in the ownership role, I think, is going to be great for the sport of NASCAR.
All right, we'll go Dustin Long, George Diaz, and David Scott.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports for Rick. It was this race 11 years ago that nearly ended the partnership of Jimmy and Chad. Jimmy said the other day that over time, you kind of come to him and Chad and ask, is it still working? Why would you do that, and what were you looking at, or how much were you considering it times since to making the change?
I think it's the toughest question, and when you have a relationship, it could be in a dealership, it could be in a race team, when you have two guys that have been so good, and you try to decide, is it time? And this year we started off really well, and then we hit a lull in the summer, and it was we asked ourselves then, is this time? Do we need to make a change? But when you see things that are so close, I think that's when they work harder. And we've had we really just sit down and work hard together and try to identify weaknesses. And I think they have both made a commitment. They want to retire together. They want to finish their careers together. So when there's problems, everybody kind of locks arms. And this year, the whole organization did about the summer, and the speed picked up for all the cars. But it was a situation. I think their relationship right now, I think this summer was the biggest test we've had, when we just weren't running after winning a couple of races and struggling, but they did not lose focus, and it wasn't one of those situations where, we talked it out, but it was not a time when we were going to say, let's just try something different.
All right, we'll go George, David, and then Claire B.
Over here, George Diaz with Atlanta Sentinel for Mr. Penske.
Sure. Hey, Joe.
You're described as an entrepreneur in pieces that one reads. Did it come by happenstance, or were you always focused on having such diversified business interests?
Well, I think, I love cars as a young individual, and my dad took me to Indy, and, it kind of became part of my DNA was automobiles, and then had the chance to become a Chevrolet dealer back in Philadelphia in 1965, and, that, and along with our race team helped us build a brand, so I would say it started right at the beginning, and, the access, as Joe knows, and certainly Rick does, to the OEMs, because when we win with their brand, it's just something that drives through a company, don't you say, your sponsors? And that gave us a real opportunity to connect at the highest levels, and that gave me the opportunity to build partnerships which have made the difference, in our company in the past and certainly still today.
All right, David, clear B, and then Tom Jensen.
David Scott with Chicago Observer. Rick, this is for you, but I'd be interested in Joe and Roger's answer also. When Jimmy was winning his 6 championships, it seemed like he had a hard time getting the acceptance and respect of a lot of NASCAR fans. He says he thinks that's changing now, maybe because he's getting older. Why do you think that was, and was that frustrating for you?
Yeah, it is. I think I was talking to someone a little bit earlier, and they said Jimmy seems to be very vanilla, and Jimmy's kind of everything but vanilla. I mean, he may come across at the track that way because he's so focused and driven, and he thinks like a computer when he's in the car. If you listen to him give feedback and break it down, or in a debrief, he's just so, the way he eats, the way he exercises, everything's about physical and mental fitness for the race car. But when you see him at a charity event with a bunch of his friends, he's one of the most fun-loving guys. Like, I've been around him in lots of events with friends, and he's bubbly, and I see a lot of 48 shirts and fans in the garage area now, and I think people, I think when he won 5 in a row, he was winning a lot of races and a lot of championships, and people maybe got a little tired of it, but I think then after the 6th one, we had a lull. I think they respect him now, and they look at what he's accomplished, and I feel like I still say that Jimmy's going to get more credit when he's done than he'll get when he's driving. But to look at what he's accomplished, it's pretty remarkable what he has done, and the people that don't know, that don't like Jimmy Johnson, don't know Jimmy Johnson. All the good he's done to mentor so many young people, young drivers, and still does today.
I might say that, I've watched Jimmy for a number of years, and, he's certainly connected in partnership with Rick. But he is the ultimate driver when you think about people in the garage. I don't think he has an enemy out there. When you talk about driver to driver, crew chief to crew chief, Johnson is at the very top of the game, and you have to respect that. We certainly do from a Team Penske perspective, and I'm sure the coach does also. And to me, people don't like to see someone win all the time. Well, I love to win all the time, so I'm sure Rick does, and I know Joe does. So to me, I take my hat off, and I wish I had my driver going for the 7th championship. So, Rick, you don't have to. No apologies for that guy. I think he's.
I actually
he's the best.
I actually vote to break him up. I think you should break him up.
That's pretty good.
All right, we'll go to Claire, Tom Jensen, then Kenny Bruce.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. When we talk to your employees, drivers, crew chiefs, or whatever, they just adore the 3 of you, and they know what leaders you are within the companies. They also say the 3 of you are incredibly competitive. And yet we don't see that on the outside, only on the inside, right? You guys are partners in a sense as team owners in the owner council, but how competitive are you amongst each other outwardly? And do you bust each other's chops? Do you, I guess there's no trash talking, just a little bit on the stage today, but you're in business together in a sense in the owners council, and yet how competitive do you see yourselves outwardly with each other?
I think for me, Rick and I have 2 grandkids that hang out together, and I think we get the biggest kick out of that. But I know how competitive these 2 guys are. I know Roger, and you got such great respect for Rick and what they've done. And so I was just thrilled to get into this sport and be a part of it, and having watched these guys and knew what they did. So I'd say that, I know that those two guys are extremely competitive. They wouldn't be where they are, and I admire that. When I get a chance to go to the racetrack and race against them, I think everybody in our group respects both these guys, everybody in our sport. I wanted to mention one thing, that talk about your team and everything. I just want to thank everybody back at our race shop, and I want to mention JD. And that every time I get here someplace like this may be a weekend where he can't come. I just thank everybody here that's prayed for him.
All right, we'll go to Tom Jensen, Kenny Bruce, and then back to Jeff.
Sunday morning or early afternoon, right before you guys climb in the cars, what's the last piece of advice you're going to give?
Well, I think that if you give them any different advice that you gave them 36 weeks ago, I think you're probably making a mistake. I think they got to take it on as another race. The one thing that's different on Sunday, we're racing 3 other people, that's all. So we don't have to worry about 37. I think that's really the difference.
I think to try to keep as much pressure off of them as possible and not try to say, they know what they got to do. These guys, all of them are champions, and just let them go do their job and support them. They're going to have enough pressure. So it's just, we've done the best I know all 4 of these teams have prepared as the best we know how, and go out and do the best we can, and leave it all on the track, and that's it.
Coach, anything from you? You got 2 drivers, a little different than the guys on your left and right.
They're gonna wreck each other. Do you think
That may be a distinct possibility. So
this is gonna be between Roger and I.
yeah, there you go.
That's right. He'll take care of it for us.
No, I think, we were thrilled to get our 2 guys in there. But I do look at it as, I know Joey. I know what this is going to be for him and for Jimmy. So I look at it as we're thrilled to have 2 of our guys in there and our sponsors. So we're thrilled for that part of it. But it's going to be an individual deal. Believe me, they're going to be going for it, all 4 of these guys. And I know how bad our 2 guys, I watched them. And they pretty much set down a bunch of rules. And basically it was just, we're going to try and make it a normal weekend, just what Rick said. And so that's what I think that's probably the best way to approach it.
All right, we'll go down here to Kenny, then back to Jeff, and then over to Lewis.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. You 3 gentlemen all came in at different times. I think Roger was 70s, Rick was 80s, Joe was in the early 90s. In the garage, we've always seen teams watch each other and see what they're doing and if that's going to work for them. Can't keep any secrets out there. As owners, do you guys watch what each other does and how they run their individual operations and maybe adapt that to how you guys run your businesses, or is it strictly, I know what's best for my business and I'm not concerned with what other?
I would say that, from my perspective, I use Coach Gibbs and Rick, really as models, for our organization. You don't have the success he had in football, and also the way he's built this team in such a short time. And we look at that, and then from a commercial perspective, to be able to show companies that we're trying to deal with, to see Mars and see Lowe's and people, just to mention a few, and see those folks be involved is a real plus for us, and it has been much different than when we were back in the 70s running.
Well, I think, when you look at Roger and I are good. I didn't get to answer the other question. Roger and I are good friends. We talk a lot. We're both in the automobile business. We actually vacation together, and I admire him a lot. And I watch his attention to detail. I watch how Coach organizes his organization and rallies his people. But in the garage area, you watch everybody. I mean, it's the damnedest place I've ever seen about snooping And sometimes you'll put stuff on a car just to watch them take a picture of it, you know? And it really doesn't do anything, but it's just fun to watch them run around and take a picture of it. So it's really kind of neat in there to, you might have something one day, but on a serious note, one thing we've learned through our organization with the owners, there's a lot of smart people in this sport. The presidents of Joe Gibbs' operation and Roger's operation, when we start working together, and you look at the depth of the talent that's in these teams today, it's amazing. From a financial basis or marketing or just the organizational skills that they have. It's really phenomenal to me, because I remember when I started and what I started with, and you know, with 5 people and Harry and renting transmissions and gears, and you look at the technology and everything else that goes out there today. So I think we've built off of each other. You see someone step it up, and then you step it up, and then we force each other to get better. But it is and you know, the really neatest thing about the garage area, I walked out yesterday and spent some time talking to Jack Roush. We have to race each other, but this is a pretty tight fraternity of owners that respect each other, and I think Joe used that word. Respect is the big word. I mean, you know, with Richard Petty and Richard Childress and all of the guys that had been in it when I got in it, and you know, we want to beat each other, but we still have a way of becoming and staying friends. Because I know when we always have a skirmish, we always tell each other we weren't driving the car. You know, we don't ever have a problem with each other over it.
All right, we'll go back to Jeff.
I was just going to mention one thing that's different. It's kind of what we were talking about here. Everybody's around Charlotte. That's what's different about it. And so it's like one big family, but we're not spread all over the country. So, yeah, all the things that you hear and you go back and forth, and we're all extremely competitive. I think Rick said it best, that when somebody gets ahead, it's almost like, okay, it's pushing the rest of us. Okay, here we go. What are they doing? And I think it has caused us to be better and better. I think we've kind of pushed each other. That's what I see in it. And the thing that amazed me about the family here and all the people who work on these cars, I came down here, I remember the very first thing I worried about was all the tools, the machinery, all the stuff we had. I started saying, you know, there's got to be, man, I'm worried about people taking things and all that. None. I'm talking about 25 years. I don't know of anything, with the exception of, we had one janitor try to take a motor one time. Wasn't real smart, but other than that, it's an amazing fraternity that we have everything around, and people don't take things, and they really respect each other. I think that's great about what we do, and I kind of quit worrying about it.
All right, we'll go back to Jeff and then wrap it up with Lewis.
I'm sorry. You talked a lot about the pressure on your drivers, but organizationally, I'm sure everybody on your teams feels a lot of pressure from a leadership point of view. Did you guys do anything differently this week to help manage that?
I'd say from our organization, you know, we have our debriefs after each weekend, and you know, certainly we got ready for this race not starting on Monday. We were building cars for backup cars and cars for this race probably 6-8 weeks ago. So you know, there's been a lot of focus on Homestead, hoping we would be in a position where we are. But you know, it's as I say, that this is what it's all about, getting to this final opportunity to run. And I would say our organization's been focused. You know, certainly I got to take my hat off to Roush Yates and the engine side. We keep pushing them every week. In fact, ironically, at Phoenix last week, we were changing an engine at our dealership before we went to the track. So you know, that's how close we are to having the cars ready each weekend.
That's not right. He was working on cars 6 or 8 weeks ago. We started 2 weeks ago. See, that's how you push each other. That's what we need to be doing.
All right, Louis Frank.
Louis Frank of Reuters. You gentlemen have accomplished so much in this sport. What keeps you coming back what motivation keeps you coming back year after year?
Try to beat these guys.
I asked myself that this morning. I think Roger and I talked about this a lot. Actually, Joe and I talked about this at our grandson's football game.
Yep.
It's the love of the sport and competing, and Roger and I love the automobile business, and like you said, it's part of what we do. And you see all these OEMs down here this weekend, and we're carrying their flags. And I don't know, I grew up racing since I was 8 with my dad, and that's all I know in the automobile business. And when Joe called me, I mean, he's been a drag racer before you were a coach, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, that's the worst mistake I ever made. I should never have helped him, but no, it's. I think it's the passion and being able to compete, and it just fuels you getting up and coming out here and trying to do it again.
For me, it's, to fall in love with cars and motorsports. I moved to Southern California when I was 16. I fell in love with hot rods and drag racing, and I know that's the way Roger loves it. And it's something about being around cars, and most people in here know what that's like. And then to be able to put stuff together and see it run and then try and beat somebody, to me, it gets me excited every morning, is to get up and think, hey, we got a chance to go compete against the best in the world at something. That's a real thrill.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, and good luck this weekend across all 3 series.
Thank you.